Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman. We're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow. Joining us today, Doug Dickey out of Houston, Texas, DRDA. Doug, I think this is the first time we've had you. We've had our friend Susie Granger on several times, so welcome.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate you having us here today.
Well, let's start right off the top. What do you do?
Well, we're a CPA firm, so we work with small and middle market businesses throughout the country to help them everywhere from just simple tax planning and compliance to compilation reviews and audits, as well as a pretty robust management advisory services component that helps businesses grow and plan their exit and source financing and a whole host of other things.
Well, the other things which a lot of SBA lenders are involved with is your specialists in 401k rollovers to help borrowers for the equity injection on 7A and 504 loans, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The Borsa structure is something we've been working with for 14, 15 years now. And it's just one of those structures or tools that came along that helps us create capitalization or financing for small businesses. So it's just one of the components of what we do as a firm.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Please, we're going to ask you some questions. Please, we love your questions. If you have something that comes up during this session, feel free to send it to Joseph. Otherwise, you can send it to us anytime during it. Joseph, go back one. You're going too fast for me. For those of you who are new, we have our certificates. You can download these PDF. You can sign them, file them away. This helps satisfy the question by your regulators, SBA, and your auditors and what you're doing for training. Is that part of your assessment, Doug?
Yes, absolutely. We do bank audit as well.
Very good. Very good. Let's see. We're brought by our new newsletter, which is gaining some popular traction. The top 10 things you need to know about overseeing your SBA PPP Main Street lending. I think the last one's sort of going bye-bye. This is for the C-suite. This is for your board of directors. We do it in actually it's closer to 3 pages PDF. I think maybe even be 4. That way they can look at it bite-sized. They don't need to know how to document a 401k or an equity injection, but they certainly need to know what the trends are. And there's a lot of false information, a lot of that we want to try to get out so people understand specifically the C-suite of what we're doing. And as an aside on that, Doug, we're going to go to the poll questions, but we need to keep this in perspective. Now, the PPP fraud is getting a lot of play, but we asked you on to be our accountant. Out of 5 million loans, there have been 33 fraud prosecutions. What's that percentage, Doug?
Really low is what that is. You know,
I think it's a rounding error.
Yeah, the program's been a great program and exactly what the nation needed at the point in time. It probably does it.
And there's a great article by former Administrator Karen Mills. She's with an advisory group. She's a senior fellow at Harvard, and she has become a very strong advocate for small business. And this, just a couple of stats, and I'm a big stat guy. She's quoting the NFI, National Federation of Independent Business Survey. 71% of businesses who receive PPP loans have already spent all the money. 46% believe they will need additional financial support. Now, we all know that Congress is wrestling with that. Doug, I had gone on record that it would be resolved by last Friday. I was wrong. And hopefully it'll be done by the recess. Do you have any insight, or what is your personal opinion about that?
Sure. I think that what your statistics are showing are absolutely what we're seeing in our client base. We work with small and middle market businesses all over the country. And you know, when the PPP program first came out, when the CARES Act was enacted, we were going on the air just like you were, trying to get information out so people can understand what's this mean to them? How can they use it? And if you recall, it was an 8-week window, right? You get it, and what the intention was, we were all going to go home for 2 months. You come back, and the world's going to be just the same way it was before. Well, we missed that one as well, right? And so during that time, businesses were determining how to be able to survive, as well as how to be able to comply with the continual changes that were coming out on the program to be able to make certain that they would hopefully put themselves in a position for forgiveness. Most of us who were first and second rounders, those monies have already been spent. And so now businesses are finding themselves in a true down economy. In some segments anyway. Some segments are hitting it out of the park, but some segments are having certainly a tough time to survive. They've spent their triple P money, and so now they're back to, oh, how do I capitalize this, and how do I support this, and how long am I going to need to hold out for in this
right. I do know there's $130 billion left over in that PPP fund. Yeah. The consensus people we talked to, Doug, is it's going to happen. The question is, will it happen before they go on break, which will be sometime this weekend or after Labor Day? I think we're all hoping. We certainly want it done by as soon as possible. Fortunately, it is still a bipartisan support. Every vote has been bipartisan, 100% unanimous. So this is a scary statistic, and I want to ask you about that because you're dealing with small business all throughout the country. This is what Karen Mills writes. The PPP did a good job of distributing loans at a massive, unprecedented scale, which I absolutely agree in and had to be done. I think you're saying the same thing in a very short period of time. But it needs to do better. Without action from Congress, we will stand to lose 20 to 30% of our nation's small businesses.
Yeah, I would think that statistic is an estimate is fair. Restaurant associations estimating more than that, right? Because that's an industry that's been devastated. Even if you're allowed to open at 50% capacity, how many businesses could sustain their operating costs at 50% of revenues, right? It's a no-win situation. And so you have hotels, you have travel companies, you have conference organizations, event planners. These people are seriously in trouble in their industry. And so there's going to be certainly a shakeout, and I would think that a third is not a low estimate at all.
Well, and unfortunately, this is a once-in-a-generational event. 9/11 was one. If you go back through our history, this happens, and this is now you're not only you're stuck with a recession, but you are personally at risk, you and your family. So this, as I like to say, the world's gone mad, Doug.
Well, the businesses were able to survive with some of the triple P money.
Tell us about that. Tell us who, in your opinion, who some of the winners are.
Well, I think winners certainly are placement organizations. I've got clients who place people in healthcare, whether it's hospitals or hospitalists, nurses, physicians. Those people are hitting it out of the park. Construction companies have done real well during that time frame as well, as long as they can get supplies, because their supply chain interruption has not been as severe as others, but it has affected them as well. You have service businesses like us who are able to work remotely and able to continue to function. So I think the service industries are fine. I think construction industry has done real well. Transportation, for the most part, is done okay on being able to continue, but we've got to get some help for hospitality industries, restaurants, entertainment, bars, or hotels, travel concerns. The airlines have obviously suffered dramatically in this. And all the businesses, you think about the businesses that are ancillary to those. I have a bread company who makes bread, and their primary markets were white tablecloth restaurants, sporting franchises, did all the major professional teams, universities and schools. Well, those businesses are not quite the same. And you can pivot, obviously, and try to go into other areas, but you still are looking at...
It's horrible. Yeah, you have entrepreneurs that built these businesses up. Some are second generation. And this is getting hit over the head with the 2x4. That when you sit down to your planning for 2020, none of this was expected. So it's unfortunately, or fortunately for professionals like you, I mean, these small business entrepreneurs need to become Renaissance people, and they need to develop a whole set of skills. And as you said, the service industry, such as CPAs, lawyers, specialty accountants, consultants are able to do that. So that's
no question. We spend time, whether it's loan packaging and growing and strategic planning for those that are, or turnarounds, right, for people who are suffering and going through the adversities we have right now economically.
Yeah. What's going on with Houston? Southern California is still in lockdown. Are you in phase 2 lockdown, or are you guys pretty well open?
I think I've lost track of which phase we're in at this particular point.
Fair enough.
But things like some health clubs and bars are still closed. Restaurants clearly open. They're trying to communicate as best they can. Our our rates are starting to come down. Houston obviously was a huge hot spot
Yeah.
for a while, but we're starting to come down a little bit better. The virus isn't going to go away. Even if we go home and we come back out, it's going to be here. So this is something we're going to have to deal with until an effective vaccine is available.
Yeah, and as it expands, I mean, all of us now have stories of friends of ours who have this, and to various degrees, and everyone be safe out there. Hey, let's go to the poll questions. Doug, we'd like to ask polls. Is your lending institution waiting for a PPP overhaul from Congress to begin forgiveness applications? Yeah, that's good. There was a article, and I apologize, I don't have it, but Chase is going to wait till September. Doug, are you on the ground in that? Do you know what people are doing here? Let's see if I can find this here.
Sure. Here's what we're doing with our clients is that we're recommending that they go ahead and for those that have met the criteria as is outlined in the program, to go ahead and file their application with their lender, assuming the lender will accept the application. There is a basis for the forgiveness that's already out there. I know there's a lot of questions and confusion as to what some of it means or interpreting, but these businesses need some closure. And here's a dilemma from an accounting and from a business person standpoint, and from a tax standpoint as well, quite frankly. Remember that the concept is these loans are made, and that's a debt, right? You have an obligation to repay unless you meet the criteria for forgiveness. Well, upon meeting the criteria for forgiveness, this becomes forgiven, but it's not taxable. There's an exemption here that says this is not going to be a tax event to you. But here's where the tax comes into play. To the extent that you incur expenses that are used to be able to support your application for forgiveness, those are not deductible.
They're not deductible.
So we have clients that will have fiscal year ends. They've gotten their money. They're going to have fiscal year ends. And before 24 weeks is up, before 60 days and 90 days up in the review period of time, they're going to have tax returns that are due. And so what position do you take? And for us, I think you have to take the legal standard. Legal standard is until I'm forgiven, I owe. I have a debt, right? It's an obligation. So on the books, it should still be recorded as a debt. Now, upon receipt of something from the lender in the SBA that says, no, Doug doesn't have to pay, then Doug can go back and make adjustments. And so we may be taking positions on tax returns that will actually require amendments later on because there's a timing gap here. So
I have to ask this question. I'm a financial statement nerd. I love stats. I love numbers. We're forgiven. We get the letter. How do you book that on their financial statements? What are you going to do?
Sure. Right now it's debt, right, until it's forgiven.
Yeah, I understand that.
Upon being forgiven, it becomes income. It's going to go down to the bottom of the income statement as an extraordinary event, right? It's not income from operations. It's a unique set of circumstances. So it will not affect your normal operating EBITDA, but it will be income. It just happens to be non-taxable income, the same as if you had muni bonds or some other type of non-taxable income on your income statement. So it will go into income. It will go into retained earnings because it's money you don't have to pay back.
Okay.
I'm
sorry to ask that question, but I'm fascinated by that type of stuff.
No, there's a whole host of things that are going to affect us here. The expenses are still expenses from a financial reporting standpoint, right? Even though they're not deductible from an IRS standpoint, you still have to recognize them as expenses. And so you're going to have some analytics that it's going to be different in 2020 and 2021 when lenders are looking at underwriting loans going through this. There's going to be some things that have to be
understood. If you see that extraordinary item, you can't put that in your cash flow. Hey, this is what Wells Fargo said. Wells Fargo said that, and this came out this morning, that they're waiting for additional guidance. JP Morgan says, JP Morgan, they're called the largest single processor of PPP loans. We'll go with that. I'll verify that. Said it would not have its forgiveness process up and running until late August or early September. So that may give you some benchmarks in terms of if you're being questioned by your auditors or your board on what's going on, you can say, hey, these two large banks are waiting for final guidance. So let's go to the second poll question, Joseph. How do you transmit 159 information to SBA? Very good. 54% got that right, Doug. You need to transfer it with E-Tran under the first loan disbursement. For those of you who answered, we don't. I hope that you're just being surly to mess with our poll results, but you need to get that in. If it's a completed 159, we need to get that to SBA. I don't know how deep. Do you get into that at all, Doug, 159?
No, we really don't. That doesn't affect us much.
And this is for Doug. Have you ever used a 401k rollover for an equity injection for an SBA loan? Doug, what do you think the answer is going to be?
Well, I'm certainly hoping it's yes for everybody, right?
Well, it's not. Let's see. I know you're not going to believe this, but I was going to say 50%. So I 50-50. That's a pretty good number, which means it's popular. Yeah. Very good. Let's see. Just some other interesting things that you should be aware of. We want to talk about big picture stuff. Be aware of what's going on with Amazon and malls. We're getting rumblings and articles that they're taking over these malls. These huge retail bankruptcies are going to affect Main Street. So understand your footprint. That's really what I'm saying. Losers, Doug. What I hate to focus on that, but what industries have the biggest challenge today?
Sure. I think on the horizon is probably going to be commercial real estate, like what you're talking about. We have been set up as an organization to work remotely for decades, but not everybody has. But everybody's been forced to do that here recently, right? And so I'll have a number of clients who are looking at their leases and saying, we didn't think we could do this, but we've proven that we actually can, And so now they're looking at how can they restructure their office in such a way that they can have some key essential elements there and perhaps some hoteling or conference room space, and then downsizing a lot of it. So I think large commercial office buildings may be impacted by this over the next 2 or 3 years.
Absolutely. And also then the ancillary small businesses, the coffee shops, the restaurants that support these these skyscraper, high employment type of locations, and also retail. People go out on the lunch hour and shop. Joseph, do you want to go ahead, Doug? I'm sorry.
Each of these industries are not in a vacuum, right? I mean, they affect multiple support organizations all around them. The stakeholders in these are huge. It just permeates all of our society. So it will be a reshuffling of the economy based upon how we change how we work and how we live going forward.
We're going to be tracking specific industries. Joseph, you want to hop in here? And we're starting to track hotel industry. You want to hop in, and what have you learned?
Real quick. As the cases and traveling is still restricted to at least 2020 here, a lot of business travel is stopped. So it's business as usual with the same talking points we've had the last couple of months. But we will give you an updated graph and charts for the hotel stuff moving forward.
Yeah, but the takeaway from this is I'm reading about robots and office space and safe distancing. We have to be a lot smarter as lenders, is that the world has changed. In fact, we got guidance from SBA last Friday that said, hey, you need to address these in your credit memos. So start doing that. I got an email yesterday. Do we have a template? I don't have a template. Again, it can be 2 or 3 paragraphs. What SBA wants to see, what auditors want to see, they want to see that you've addressed the issue in terms of we do not believe the pandemic is affecting this footprint, this small business, or it is affecting it, and this is what they're doing to mitigate for operation, and this is what the lender is going to do to mitigate risk. So, Doug, final question. Our final answer, or final comment.
Final comments, I guess, would be, it is a changing world and a changing economy. Speaking to lenders, you guys are people of faith. You make loans and have faith that people will repay. And this is a changing circumstances. What you underwrote 2 years ago is not the same economy you're in today. And so I think how the lending industry handles this will be impactful for years to come. Clearly, We are in a recessionary time. The economy is down. Clearly, we're going to get past this. There will be life on the other side, and these businesses will come around. Can they survive during the interim, and what's the impact for you guys? I think we need to get the PPP money out there, but I think we also need to get it off the books and forgiven so it can free up you guys' capital, get some cash back into the banks, and be ready to loan for businesses to come back and grow again. We have to have capital source for all businesses of all size.
Well, nice summary. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we couldn't have our friend Susie Granger on. I know she does a wonderful job for you. So thank you for subbing for her as well. And let's get you back next month and bring us up to date. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us for the Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.